Welcome to the Commonwealth of Learning's podcast series, Sustainability and Growth, Women Leaders Driving Long-Term Success in NGOs. I am Dr. Ann Wallace and I am your host. The development of civil society and peace in the world are but some of the commitments of the Commonwealth of Learning. In this quest, CALL supports institutions around the globe by helping them to solve local problems with local solutions. In this podcast series, we seek to illustrate to women and girls the importance of service to community by highlighting the sterling work done by female NGO leaders around the world. Today, our guest is Ms. Magda Griffith from the Republic of Guyana. A truly philanthropic Caribbean citizen, Ms. Magda Griffith has a long history of working in non-governmental organizations, serving the needs of the communities where she lived. As the founder and executive director of Specialists in Sustained Youth Development and Research, Inc., referred to as CIDAR, Inc., since 2016, Magda brings to the role a history of service, having worked as chief of party of the USAID-funded Skills and Knowledge for Youth Employment project, a position she graduated into from being the deputy chief of party and the juvenile justice and center specialist on the project with the Education Development Center. Before working with the USAID projects, Magda Griffith worked on a project designed to reduce indigenous populations' vulnerability to trafficking in persons in her capacity as program manager of the Catholic Relief Services Trafficking in Persons project funded by the United States government. Magda Griffith holds a BSc degree in sociology and an MSc degree in social sciences from the University of Guyana. She's also an alumna of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College in St. Lucia. Using this educational background and her passion for research in the service of society through serving the youth, Magda worked as a lecturer at the University of Guyana and as teacher at secondary schools in St. Lucia. As the executive director of CIDAR, Inc., Magda leads the charge of assisting the youth of Guyana to finding employment and livelihood opportunities through coaching, mentoring, training, development, and research. A path aimed at taking them away from the perils befalling many young people today. Ms. Griffith is the proud mother of two, a researcher and a social entrepreneur, laser focused on the betterment of humanity. Welcome, Ms. Magda Griffith.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wallace. It's my pleasure.
Great. I'm very happy to have you and to hear about the wonderful work that you are doing for the young people of Guyana. It seems that CIDAR was born out of the collective passion of people determined to, one, ensure that foreign aid assistance was not just a one-off, as it happens to be in many projects around the world, and two, that the path to success for the youth is an ongoing journey. Tell us why and by whom CIDAR was formed.
Oh, okay. So as you had said, so my journey with the USAID SKY project, Skills and Knowledge for Youth Employment project, is what sort of pushed me into CIDAR. So having worked with youths in varying forms over the years, and when I was given the opportunity to actually lead the USAID SKY project, having been part of the design of that project, I enjoyed the role of managing the project, so much so that I thought that, hey, after this, I will look at maybe working somewhere in Africa. I had all these grand ideas. But as we pushed through, and as the team put every effort into doing what they did, working with the youth, training the youth, coaching the youth, working with the juvenile justice system to ensure that youths who were, alternatively sentenced were given an opportunity, working with the youths from the juvenile facilities, it started to change my outlook of where I wanted to go. And it started to chip away at that thought of, oh, I can, make this into a career of going here and there and and being a chief of party, managing projects. And so I started to think more of, hey, we have something really good. Um, we're doing a lot of good work. There are real results. And imagine if we're not here, what would happen? We had started working with so many youths. It was over 3,000 young persons that we would have worked with across Guyana in five of the 10 administrative regions, regions 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. And I just felt it would be an absolute waste simply because you had all the right people together and to just let it go after the project funding comes to an end would be, for me, I thought it was an absolute waste. And so I started speaking with the USAID manager at that time, along with speaking with Education Development Center, because the USA Project Sky was being implemented by EDC, EDC being a US not-for-profit. And then speaking with some members on the team, on the Sky team, and I said, hey, this is what I would like to do. And everyone was interested in moving it forward. So EDC was interested, USAID was interested, and so we were literally EDC sent in some of their personnel to guide us through the process.
Mm,
So it's like you just have a vision and everybody is happy to support it.
mhm,
That is how SIDAR came into existence because we didn't have to fight for our initial funding. What EDC did was they had funding left from the original Sky project. And so when it came to an end, they were able to write into USAID and continue some work. And in continuing that work, what they did was to subcontract SIDAR
mm,
to do the work. So it was sort of I don't know. Sometimes you think that you're supposed to fight, but you don't have to if you know how to strategically go about things. And when people see your passion and they understand that this is going to be real results, they go for it.
mm,
EDC was able to write to USAID, and we all of the equipment actually from the USA Sky project was then gifted to SIDAR. The curricula that we were working with that were EDC's own, Education Development Center's own, were also gifted to SIDAR. And so we were able to start on October, open our doors on October 1st. And SIDAR, and it's what? This year, October will make it 9 years we were in existence. Yeah.
mhm. Very good, very interesting. This is a nice start to this project. I'm glad to hear how well all the stars seem to have aligned at the right time, at the right place. And I'm also glad to hear that you you kind of adhered to the adage that charity begins at home. So you stayed home instead of going over into Africa. Not to say you shouldn't do that, but I'm glad that you're doing it where you're doing it. Now you're
Yes.
talking about training. I saw that you do training of the youth and so on. And that's the path we would like all young people to take to avoid the enticing challenges that beface them. But those challenges are quick money, limited effort, and that's what young people tend to want because they don't know better. What makes it, well, I should ask what it is that cider does to make these very young people turn their backs on that quick money or those quick get rich quick opportunities and attend workshops for their betterment and development.
Okay. So first on the Sky project, what the team would do is actually go into communities and recruit youth. On the CIDR, we focus on projects that in specific communities or specific schools, that sort of thing. But the key to what we do is that the training we inherit, the curricula we inherited was curricula that we would have worked with different teams to modify to suit Guyana. One. And the methodology of coaching, which
Mhm,
is an asset-based approach, is what we would have also inherited, perfected, and used to be able to keep youths engaged. So once a youth joins the training,
mhm,
the completion rate of any training is always over 95%.
mhm.
It is fun. It is literal fun. And
Okay.
so I think too often the whole concept of the chalkboard and just teaching and expecting them to just listen and absorb is something that our education systems around the world need to move away from. And so our focus is learning through role play, their games, their small group, large group discussions. It is just literal fun. Even for me, now if I go to visit any one of the trainings that we may be conducting at any point in time, you always get yourself all immersed and you'll find that you're smiling from the time you enter to the time you leave. And so outside of that, though, we focus a lot of what we do on coaching. Why? There are lots of really good trainings out there, but then training a young person and letting them go to continue whatever it is, down a path doesn't really cut it. So what we focus on is coaching, where coaching, guidance of the young persons. We work with every youth who comes through SIDAR. We develop with them an individual livelihood plan. And this plan is a literal breathing document, is a living document in that it's not, a youth doesn't say, hey, I would like to own my own business. You come up with work with them to come up
Mhm,
with their short-term goals, their long-term goals, what is needed, and you work that through with them. So
mhm,
they take ownership of
mhm.
their growth. And then you work with guiding them and helping them to be able to reach there.
Okay.
You see, and so the thing with coaching is that you have to be there for them.
Right.
Sometimes as adults, we think that giving a young person everything is what, matters. Giving to them is important, but what's more important is being able to listen to them and for them to know that they're being heard. you know,
Mhm, mhm.
not to say that I have not made mistakes. I have kids, so
Yep. Yep.
but it's all, it teaches you so much.
Mhm.
And I think just having the heart for young people within the team is what keeps the youths engaged. They
Okay.
know that they are valued. And so we operate on a coaching methodology of an asset-based approach.
Mhm.
So, yes, they may have other issues, but ideally, once you And I'm saying ideally, but in reality too, once you identify person's assets, it sort of softens everything.
Yeah.
It opens, it opens doors because they're more trusting. They feel valued. And bottom line, people just need to feel valued.
Yes. Yes.
And it works.
Yeah.
They somehow stay. And we say once aside our youth, always aside our youth. A lot of what we do have been picked up or have been, well, it has been gifted. We've been trained in it through our work with EDC under
Mm-hmm.
the USA Sky Project. And so our focus is always to keep bettering everything that we've received.
Mm-hmm.
And we're, I say to the team that you're also always marketing,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so you can't ever slip up. Even if we've had funding from one organization for the past 7 years or 8 years, we ensure that we put our best effort in every single time.
Okay.
So, and it
Good.
works. It
It
has
works.
been working, and we'll just keep bettering everything we do.
Very good.
And I love creating.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's like you start with something. Take, for example, we have a particular program called Employment Attack 102.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular program, we work with the youths in coming, leaving, exiting secondary school. So they would have completed CSEC and they're about to embark on life beyond the high school. And so we focus on training them for 1 month, which is 20 days of training every Monday to Friday. And then we work on developing their life plans and focus on coaching beyond that month of training towards guiding them, whether it's further education or whether it's to a job or whatever it is that they would like to do. And so with that training, we started off with the general training and it's excellent. Um, we went through and then COVID hit. And we were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and we were able to move to an online platform. And the kids who did it online enjoyed it. I was like, I didn't expect it. And they
Mm-hmm.
stayed. I mean, we were able to purchase phones for them and data plans through the funding.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to get their manuals and everything, and we went through. When COVID went, we continued in person, and in person we started to introduce more games.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would have the Friday afternoons as a game afternoon,
Mm-hmm.
and we would ensure that they play certain games like Chinese checkers,
Mm-hmm.
simple things like Tetris and chess and drafts and Monopoly, things that are going to you can use to
Mm-hmm.
actually teach lessons. I don't know if you've
Yes.
ever played Chinese checkers, and
Mm-hmm.
as you jump and you try to get into someone's home, whether somebody gives you an opportunity to pass through or whether
Mm-hmm.
somebody blocks you, and we make it real in terms of how life is. And
Right.
so it's we try to do every year we put a bit more effort into how we deliver. So we don't stay any one year with the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We introduce entrepreneurship and we just keep building, building, building. And the team is always excited too. I think if you're to meet the team, it's a whole, we say it's a group of crazy people. And we just have fun, literally just have fun. Yeah.
Great. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Clearly, you've got a very learner focused environment. Your strategy is all about understanding the youth and meeting them where they are. So I guess that answers my question about how you get them to come and to stay. It's very good. And this work is commendable. What you're describing here is absolutely commendable, and I expect that it's costly. Now, I know that you inherited from the previous projects, but it's a number of years on now. So I want to ask you, how do you fund these activities?
So I write a lot of proposals.
Uh-huh.
And so the team at CIDR they're not employed year round.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Most of our team have their own businesses, do their different things, but they're available when we have a project.
Okay.
And they're available because they're well, I think they enjoy being with CIDR. So
Mm-hmm.
they ensure they know that there's certain times in the year we have certain projects going, and so they make themselves available. How do we get that funding? So I write proposals, and sometimes, actually, most times persons approach us.
Yeah. Oh, very good.
Most times we were approached. So we do get funding. We've been funded by the government of Ghana to do certain projects. We've worked with Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, where they're tasked with working, ensuring that youths are trained across different regions, in hard skills, various things. And so they would have contracted us. We've had two such contractions where we train the youths in our work ready curriculum, the one
Mm.
that we inherited.
Mm-hmm.
We've also worked with the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs on at that time it was Indigenous Peoples, where they were training under the HIES project. They needed to train young persons in the hinterland and how to work with other young persons and how to train them to become entrepreneurs. And so we would have done that training for them. We would have worked with the prison system because one of our former members and a former co co-founder in that he was the juvenile justice and gender specialist at the time, and so I'd invited two other persons to build a sidear with me that are no longer with the organization, but he worked with the prison system before retiring as a director of prisons, actually. And so we were able to work with the prison system in training prisoners who were close to exiting in the work ready curriculum so as to allow them and help them to be able to exit in with a uh, proper understanding and better to help reintegrate them into the system, into
Okay.
society rather.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, we would have worked with Ministry of Home Affairs,
Mm-hmm.
where they were tasked with training a number of young persons, 1,200, and we were tasked with training the 1,200 young persons in the work ready curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did a lot of work through government in that regard. Outside of that, we would have gotten funding from ExxonMobil Guyana. Exxon is one of our major funders,
Mm-hmm.
in that we met with Exxon in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And when I presented on what SIDAR was doing, I mean, we were sort of a brand new organization, and they listened, and I think they loved the passion.
Okay.
What we presented, they said that they will work with us and give us a funding to just work with one community.
Mm-hmm.
When that training was done and the coaching continued, they approached me and they said, "Could you give us a proposal for something more?" I was like, "Yes, of course." And we started Employment Attack 102.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I believe that all of the funders liked was that even though you will give us funding for a 2-month project, because we move with the motto, once a side youth, always a side youth, the youth have access to us. And so beyond the project, we continue to still guide. We may
Mhm.
not visit the youth all the time, but they can call. They
Mhm.
can come in, they can get a reference, a recommendation, whatever it is that they need. They
Mhm.
can get advice, they get linkages to different opportunities. And I think that is what the funders really appreciate. And
Okay.
so we had gotten the project in 2017, December. Exxon said, you will give you this amount.
Mhm.
We executed that project in January.
Mhm.
By, I think, March or something, they came to us for us to give another proposal. And that's when I did up that proposal. And for June 2018 rolled into 2019 and then 2020, and they just kept going every year. And then they came back to me and they said, what about working with youth in care? I said, well, that's a dream of mine because I actually want to have my own orphanage someday.
Wow.
And I would love to work with youths in care facilities. And they said, okay, could you do up the proposal? And I said, sure. And so I named that one Care to Independence, Youth Empowerment, Care to Independence. And so from, I can't remember, 20, I think it's in 2022,
Mhm.
they started funding Care to Independence, and we're now 2025, and they continue.
Very
And
good.
we are able to work with those youth. We work with helping them with their homeworks. We started off actually working with a number of the care facilities. And then I did say to them that, I'm finding that the focus was the youths who are going to be exiting,
Mhm.
but the youths who are about to exit have already formed their own, they already have their own mindset. When they exit, sometimes we can't reach them, especially with the girls. They happen to fall into relationships. Some guys don't want them to talk to us. And so there's a lot more that we need to do. And I said to them, I said, we really need to start working with youth in care from as early as the youngest in care.
Mhm.
If we want for them to be able to actually, change their mindsets. Because 2 months, 3 months, couple months doesn't cut it when a youth is accustomed to a particular way of life.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so the youths from way back, we still engage with them. But then last year it was, they said to me, they said, how about you zone in to one of the orphanages? And then with what you're proposing, you're working with all of them. Let's see how it goes.
Mhm.
And so we started working with from the youngest, which was 7 years old, to those in the halfway home, which would be 18, 19, sometimes 20.
Mhm.
And so our focus is helping with their homework, coaching. We have a youth club. And so for now, youth club is sort of on a pause, yet not on a pause. And so we focus on wanting to take them out. So we did like for kite flying. We're hoping 2 weeks back, not last week, the week before, to have a picnic with them. So to take them out more and you interact with them. But the team would go in and they would work with them 4 days a week.
Mhm.
We do outside of their working with their homework and extra classes in numeracy, literacy for those who are doing CSEC, their math. And so because one of our team, the coaching manager, is actually a trained teacher. He's a
Mhm.
retired director of youth. And so it's, persons that come with a wealth of passion and knowledge as well. And so we also have skills training on one evening a week
Mm-hmm.
where they do mechanics and they do electrical, and so they do computations in doing the making the circuits, and they do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We sometimes we just drop in, well, of course, with permission, and we go and we look at a movie with them. We
Mm-hmm.
have movie nights as well, and we have some other programs that we're actually planning. So one of it is called Dinner Conversations. So we've already gotten the okay because where the youth, the idea is to have the youth come to dinner,
Mm-hmm.
not just any dinner. So they're not eating just the regular food. That's
Okay.
what we're focusing on. And at dinner, they don't talk about being sad or dealing with whatever it is that young people, adolescents deal with on a daily. We talk about innovations around the world. The
Mm-hmm.
idea is for them to see life, see other things in life, give them greater hope, because it's easy for adolescents to, for young people be annoyed with certain things. It's just like your children in your home. You
Mm-hmm.
don't do everything right.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will say it to you. And so all young people have issues with in their own little way. But
Mm-hmm.
we want them to look beyond sometimes those issues. And so
Mm-hmm.
dinner conversations is about that. Them
Okay.
learning, growing, and actually learning etiquette in the process. And they're
Yes.
introduced to more. And there are some of my friends who have their own businesses. It's like there's this young lady who Evie has a Java coffee bar. So Evie said to me, Magda, decide where you want to have it and I'll do the cooking. You don't have to think about it. I'll get the stuff to you. Tell me what is your menu.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't gone back to her on it yet because we haven't had it as yet, but there are persons who are willing to be on board.
Mm-hmm.
We the idea is to have it at the office, but then one of our team was able to make a sort of a partnership with GCC Guyana Cricket Club, and they're willing to have the youths. They said, "Don't worry, we have the space and we have the cutlery and everything." Even though we already ordered cutlery and stuff for this
Mm-hmm.
for this
Okay. Yeah.
program, but it's just exciting that people are interested
Mm-hmm.
in doing for young people. The other
Mm-hmm.
program that we're embarking on is making writers of them.
Okay.
And so there are lots of challenges with literacy.
Mm-hmm.
However, what I said to them is that every person who writes a book doesn't necessarily have all the right grammar and everything.
Mm-hmm.
They're editors who can make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And all we need from you are your stories.
Right.
And so
Yes.
the
Yes.
idea behind it is that they're going to write their own stories, or they're going to tell the stories and we're going to get it typed up.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to, if we're talking care to independence, we're talking youth at some point in time maybe exiting.
Mm-hmm.
And we know when youths are in care, they're in care for so many different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they've been abandoned, whether they've been molested in some way, whether they've been actually orphaned. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing with it is that leaving those facilities they have their challenges, but it's still a protected setting. Now, to fend for themselves, they need something to be able to go on. And so, imagine being an author of a book and being able to self-publish and somebody actually purchasing, and at some point in time, you're actually making money from it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. Some may say that it's a grand dream, but I believe it can work.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've spoken to the youths. We've gotten the permission again from the child care and protection director.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to try it. And they're
Great.
excited. When I said to them, hey, you're going to, so some of them said, so Miss, do we have to wait until you come? or can we start writing? I said, write.
Yeah, this
Yes,
is
you can
great.
write, just write.
This is
It gives them, that's what young people need. They just need a
mm,
space. They just need to know that they can express, that they'll be supported. And so I think I strayed, but it comes back to our funders. And so Exxon, as I said, is one of our major funders. The key with working with Exxon is that they're always checking in.
mhm,
They're always there's I mean, I worked with Susie now, Ryan. One of the things they will say, Susie specifically will say to me, Magda, don't worry. I don't need the perfect story. I want all. You
yes.
know?
Okay.
So it's not funders who expect you to tell them only the good that is happening.
Hmm.
No,
Well,
they
it's
don't.
clear. It is clear that your funding is um is very present because of your passion. Because in responding to my question about how you're funded, you explained so much about what you do and the vision for what you want to do and the creativity that you build into the I can understand that conscientious donors would want to continue to work with you. This is absolutely excellent. But you
Yeah.
mentioned that I know you said that a lot of the staff inside there were pretty much inherited from the previous programs and they stay because they have their own work going on and so they make their contributions and so on. But you also talked about some who have left. And when I hear of the number of programs and activities that you're doing, I expect that you will be constantly seeking new expertise.
We do.
And I wonder how you vet them. In other words, bringing people to work so closely with young people requires some careful assessment, I believe, of characters. And so, how do you go through? Do you go through a vetting process when a person says, "Well, I have this particular expertise and I can help you"? What do you do?
Okay, so well, I do a number of basic things. I search you up.
Okay.
Um, so somebody can give a really good CV,
Hmm.
but we also do the team.
Hmm.
For the most part, I trust the team.
Yes.
And so I often say to them, do you know anyone who is like you?
Hmm.
Someone who has the same sort of mindset.
Values. Okay.
Yes. And so there are lots of persons who've approached us to actually be part of CIDR who
Hmm.
wants to be a trainer, but we don't just take persons to train.
Hmm.
You have to have the right attitude to be a trainer.
Good.
So you can't come to train and end up in a tit for tat with young people. You
Hmm.
have to be special to work with young persons
Yes.
because if you have an ego, you cannot work with them.
No, no, no. My research has shown that one of the major challenges for NGOs is accountability in terms of administration and financial management. How do you ensure that these are kept intact? Would you say that a
From
person requires sound financial literacy to be able to, and administrative skills to be able to run an NGO?
Yes. Okay, so from in years back when I started working with uh Catholic Relief Services,
Mhm.
the head of programs is a young lady by the name of Cheryl Morgan. And when Cheryl hired me to be the program manager for trafficking in persons, Cheryl said to me one of the key um, needs for managing projects is finance. Now, I understood that, but I do not have a financial background. I
Right.
don't. I remember the years back when I did consultancies, all my finances was done by my ex-husband.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so he would ensure that all my systems were in order, you know. So I
Mm-hmm.
never had to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then when I was hired as the deputy chief of party
Mm-hmm.
with the USA Sky project, we had a finance manager.
Right.
But the chief of party took me through understanding that, hey, of course, you have to understand that you link programs with finances because otherwise finances can slip across and then you're unable to finish a particular aspect because it went somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And so when before as the deputy chief and as chief of party, I was trained. I went yearly to Washington for training with
Mm-hmm.
EDC.
Mm-hmm.
And that training also went into financial literacy. It
Okay.
went into audits. It went into all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And then USAID from time to time, I remember doing a training on auditing in Barbados, actually
Mm-hmm.
some years back. And so all of that sort of helped. And then when SIDAR was formed, what we did was to not just inherit tables and chairs and computer and, those sorts of things and curricula. We also put in place the same financial systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been there, we have a part-time accountant who
Mm-hmm.
focuses on ensuring that everything is entered into QuickBooks
Mm-hmm.
and I monitor. I
Okay.
monitor.
Great.
And
Wonderful.
so we've never, you see, once you have a system, it helps.
Yeah. Oh,
If
yes.
you don't have
Absolutely.
a system, then
Yeah.
things go haywire. Yeah.
Yeah. Systems are the bedrock of accountability. Well, I'm very
Yes.
glad to hear that. What is the gender makeup of the staff,
Hmm.
albeit adjunct? What is the gender makeup?
Um, it's right now we have well for the upcoming project it's sort of half
Okay. Great.
because for any training what we always try to do is to pair a male and a female.
Oh.
We
Okay.
rarely ever place two. We've never actually had two males or two females. Yes, we have. We have.
Mm-hmm.
But going for SIDAR, we focus on a male and a female. We're talking about young people.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking as much as a female trainer is an excellent trainer. Young boys would gravitate to speaking with a male if things are, if there's
Yeah.
certain things that are bothering them.
Okay.
And so you want to be able to ensure that they're well represented.
Okay.
So for every training, we ensure there's a male and a female. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Guyana is a geographically vast and
Yes.
culturally diverse place. So this means that just there you've got to be dealing with multiple social mores. And I know also that you've got the indigenous peoples who, over the years, have migrated from the hinterland to the cities for economic reasons and other reasons. So I imagine there's quite a lot of a mix you've got to look at. Is there a challenge catering to this diversity?
No.
Okay.
So we don't get as many indigenous youth
Mm-hmm.
in say we're in Georgetown.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they're around there you find in different trainings. But we
Mm-hmm.
also do training in the hinterland.
Okay.
And so we would send our team into Region 1, Region 9, they were going to Region 7. The key is that the team is when I okay, you don't see my hands, but I'm doing this. You know,
Okay.
they're a team that they just fit in anywhere.
Okay.
Young people recognize real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when we're working in regions 1, 9, and 7 specifically, I'm always thinking, let's see, who are the best persons to send into Region 1, Region 9? It's like the last time we worked in Region 9, one of our team members, she's calm but firm. And then the young man who worked with her, he's young and outgoing, but
Okay.
very aware.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
And then when we trained in Region 1, we
Mm-hmm.
had a very tall Rastafarian guy,
Mm-hmm.
but very easy, calm. And
Mm-hmm.
then we had a young lady she's a real teacher, very loud,
Mm-hmm.
but very connected. And so it's like
Okay.
you're always working it through because the indigenous population tend to be a quieter, calmer population.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that we found is that as they went through their training, you see a different, they open to the team,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which tells you that they're reserved because they're not, they haven't fully accepted. But
Mm-hmm.
once you're accepted, they're just like all the other young
Okay.
people around. It's
Great.
really beautiful. It's just about how you connect to them. And so the team they're a connecting group. It's a lovely group.
Yeah, beautiful.
So we
Beautiful
get
is
it
the
done.
word.
Yes.
Beautiful is the
Hence
word
the
that you've described. This is
what's
excellent.
that word?
Beautiful. You said it's
Oh,
beautiful. And I think as you were describing it, that word came to me. This is beautiful.
yes.
Well, you are a mother of two. And in doing the research for this project, each time I tried to reach you, you are busy, engaged in some activity. And as a result, we've only been able to connect after hours. So this leads me to my favorite question for women leaders. How do you manage this philanthropic life with family life?
I manage it. Okay, so how do I manage it? I'm sure, let me put it this way, and then I will go into more. It's a bit of my personal in.
Mhm.
So I think that my life with Cider, with Sky coming up, my kids have always been there.
Yeah.
And so I remembered when I think it was in 2017 when I had to finish that proposal to submit to the tender board um, for the morning, a particular whatever morning it was. I remembered working. I mean, you work on it, you take a while, you're working and you're adding. But just the night before, it was 4 o'clock in the morning when I left the office. Those two kids were with me, and everything was done, copied, everything sealed off in the envelopes, everything. And then we went home. We left the office at 4 in the morning.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then I'm waking them up at 6 and this is embarrassing, but at 6 in the morning to tell them we got to go. And they're tired. And I'm sorry. And still, I just got to go because we have to get this submitted by before 9 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time. And so they had to go down. At that, the good thing is that their dad, he has a cafe. He remarried and him and his wife have a cafe.
Mm-hmm.
And he was always very open and happy to ensure that his kids got breakfast every
Oh,
morning.
great. Oh, great.
So I did not do parenting alone. They were with me, but I
Mm-hmm.
got support. I have real, real support.
Wonderful.
And
That's
as
great.
they grew, it's all they knew.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so they're now part of Cider.
Okay.
My son is now our M&E and communications.
Okay.
My daughter is a trained trainer.
Okay.
And so in the summer, she would assist
Mm-hmm.
in working with the youths.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I will say this to say, at one time, I'm sure their their father thought that this is not going to go well for them. She's always too busy. What is going to happen to my kids?
Mm-hmm.
And so I say that to say, when my son said to me one day, when he would usually they would go down, visit their dad and come home. He said to me one evening, he said, Daddy said that he really loves how we have turned out. And
Excellent.
I say that to say they are who they are now, and they're having them as part of everything that I do
Yeah.
is the
Very good.
key. Not to say
Very
we've
good.
not had issues,
Who doesn't?
because there were times when I've been accused of not listening.
Mm-hmm.
And so my son would have, he would have tried to work with me through these things. But the key is when they say something, I I try to listen. I've
Mm-hmm.
been accused at one time of listening more to the youths
Mm-hmm.
than listening to them. But I
Well,
try, I
thank you.
listen. And when they criticize, I take it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm to put it this way, one of the for Exxon's funding, I think part of us going forward is that one of the persons manning projects at one time she was told that our kids go to the same school.
Mm-hmm.
And it so happened that for the Christmas concert, usually my son is a singer, songwriter. He does his producing and into his videography and stuff. And he would always plan a piece so that him and I would sing.
Mm-hmm.
And the young lady said she walked into the Christmas concert and she saw this mother and son duet happening at the school's Christmas concert. She was like, which son sings with his mother in front of all of his peers? And so I think maybe that said that, we're really indeed youth centered. And so for the years that he was in secondary school, every year we sang at the concert. And so I'm saying that to even look at one of our volunteers who's a psychologist. I taught her years back at the university during my years lecturing at UG. And she went beyond and she did a master's in applied psychology. And so she volunteers with us
Mm-hmm.
in with the youths. And one of the reasons why she was hired is because she actually has two sons.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen how she parents. And I said, I know that she'll be able to do a good job with the young people.
Okay.
And
Very good.
so you look at those sorts of things, the things that you can't really put into a job
Mm-hmm.
description,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
you find the right. the right people.
The right mix.
There's a lot more.
Yes. Well, I thank you for sharing that because I believe a lot of female leaders have this as a challenge because
Yes.
it is a balancing act, and we have to balance it in accordance with the resources at our disposal. But I believe you have shown us that uh, not only do you practice what you preach, but it takes a village to raise a
Yes.
family. Miss Magna Griffith, your passion is indomitable. You do outstanding work for the young people of your country, and you seem to have so much more to give. I thank you for chatting with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Listeners, we've been speaking with Ms. Magda Griffith, a leader with a vision and a spirit of philanthropy, building up the youth of her country. Thank you for listening. Tune in again when we speak with another dynamic female leader.